What's up everybody? On today's video, we're going to talk about a few shocking things that you need to know before you move to Florida, and nobody's going to tell you these things. Let's get right into it. Number one is a misinformation campaign being led by no other than the actual state of Florida itself. Moving to Florida is a scam, and the perpetrator of the scam is the actual state of Florida. They're using their public officials to give people information about growth and safety that is actually very misleading. And many people are moving to Florida or thinking about moving to Florida, believing that this information that they're getting from public officials is accurate. These are public officials who go on to brag about how safe their cities or counties are within the state of Florida and what a great job they're doing to reduce crime, when the reality on the streets of those counties are actually some of the worst in the entire state. So who is profiting from this scam? Free publicity, developers, builders, realtors. This is a conjunction of people who are profiting from the misinformation campaign that's leading a lot of people to think they need to move to Florida because it's safer here. And there are great and safe communities in Florida, but they're not the ones that are showing up on your Facebook timeline. So that is the first and biggest warning that you need to know about Florida, that there is a misinformation campaign to make some of the most dangerous and worst off counties in the entire state of Florida seem like attractive places to move to. Of course, people see this stuff, they believe it, and they're moving to some of the most misfortunate places in Florida because of it. Number two, car insurance costs. Notice I was specific and mentioned car insurance, not just insurance in general. When we lived in Lee County, Florida, we were paying almost $500 for two newer vehicles. The actual insurance would have been higher than a car payment if we had one. If you go on the internet and try to understand why car insurance is so expensive in the state of Florida, you're going to get all types of explanations that are all lies. The real reason car insurance is so expensive in Florida is because there is so much car insurance fraud, whether by accident or on purpose. I'm not sure why. The communities that have the highest auto insurance are Hispanic and Black communities. Are these communities disproportionately engaging in car insurance fraud at higher rates? I don't know. But if you end up in a zip code in Florida that is predominantly Hispanic, like somewhere in Dade County, Henry County, or Lee County, you can expect your car insurance rates to be absolutely insane. Insurance costs in bad neighborhoods in Florida are so high that you can actually move into a better community where rents are much higher and still out the door be saving money because your insurance will go down so much. Whether it's because these communities are more fraudulent or because they're disadvantaged economically, this is kind of an elephant in the room that nobody in Florida wants to talk about, which is actually part of a bigger scheme in the state of Florida that makes it more expensive to be poor here than it does to be rich. Because number three on our list, it's actually a state that's rigged up to be cheaper for the rich and more expensive for the poor. You heard me right. It actually costs more money to be poor in Florida than it does to be rich. Whether you're looking at percentages of property taxes, homeowners insurance, car insurance, it doesn't matter what you're doing. Even as often as you are to get a ticket from law enforcement, poor communities in Florida are disproportionately targeted economically in so many ways I wouldn't have time to elaborate on this video. A good example leads us to number four. The state of Florida does absolutely nothing to bring jobs to the people of the state. While other states that have bad economies offer the people good opportunities because they attract industries, maybe car manufacturing or other industries that allow regular people to have access to employment, the state of Florida is actually doing the complete opposite. quite literally raging a war against companies that come here. Not only is the state of Florida not giving people incentives to bring businesses here, but it is actually targeting businesses that are here to make sure that they fail and cannot provide opportunities for the people. Many people claim that behind it all are sugarcane, citrus, and other agricultural endeavors that take up huge volumes of land, and they want to ensure that normal people don't have the opportunity to get ahead because their industries depend on South Florida being a poor place because they need access to the cheap labor, massive amounts of land, and they do everything they can to ensure that nobody can compete with those resources. Number 5. Homeowners insurance. Again, the state of Florida has some of the worst homeowners insurance costs in the country. But in Florida, not only are you paying more than other people, you're getting less than other people as well. Well, these big companies want to make it seem like it's the consumer, the customer who's fraudulent. Let's not forget that the insurance companies are criminals too. And again, they play into this whole idea that only the rich people can benefit from their system of homeowners insurance, putting properties that are more affordable like mobile homes and older properties at much higher premiums, where again, it will cost you more money to insure an older home than it will to insure something newer. People who obtained mortgages 20 years ago and have to now insure a property up to their new standards are literally finding it almost impossible to find a company that will insure their home that has to be insured because it has a mortgage. Notice how this is a problem for people who took out mortgages, 20-year mortgages, 30-year mortgages many years ago. It's not a problem for the new people that are buying houses. It's a problem for the people that were already here before. Number 6, not really affordable for people like police officers or even teachers. Yeah, the cost of living versus what people are getting paid in Florida means that even police officers and teachers can't afford to live in the communities where they work. And yeah, that's a national trend, but there's a few factors in Florida that really aggravate the situation. Like the fact that in Florida, for some reason, the labor force is very competitive. Analytics and figures on housing don't even draw an accurate measure. Analytically, only doctors and nurses, few of the professions who can actually afford to make enough money to live in Florida. Apparently, you would have to work 86 hours a week as an average worker to make enough money to live in Florida if you just needed an apartment. That's about 13 hours a day if you never took a day off. But the reality is even more grim because according to these analytics, Miami, you can get an apartment for $1,700. A one-bedroom apartment in Miami is going to run you over $2,600 a month. That's if you can find it, because rentals in Florida have been appreciating higher than anywhere else in the country, which means that now places like Miami, Orlando, and Tampa actually have some of the worst income to rent ratios in the entire country. Worse than California, worse than northern New Jersey. And to aggravate that, people in early retirement have absolutely no problem taking a part-time job that's not enough to live because they're already sitting on a net worth, which means that the regular working class person doesn't even have the opportunity to compete for a regular job. Number 7, competitive marketplace for work. There's a lot of factors that we've already mentioned, including people in early retirement who will take any job just to take it. Which means if you're a younger demographic, you can't even get a job indoors. You're forced to take those crappier jobs because there's so many people with better, let's just say there's no real legal way they can do this, but it's definitely done throughout the entire state of Florida. Technically, you're not supposed to age discriminate people, but the employers find that a 55-year-old woman in early retirement will give them a lot less drama than somebody in their early 20s or 30s, so you don't really have the opportunity to compete for the comfortable jobs. Those jobs are reserved for the elite early retirees of Florida. But that's not the only factor that makes the labor force in Florida extremely competitive. You also have people from other countries who came here with absolutely nothing that are willing to work like animals to get their life started in the United States. In other states, you just don't have this outside element of people that are willing to work very hard to have basic needs. You have people that are more complacent. Not here in Florida. You're going to have to compete for any job, even if it sucks. People here are also very demanding. They want to pay you very little and get a lot in return. If you've been at a Starbucks line in Florida, you're in and out in 3 to 5 minutes. You go to other states, that same Starbucks line can take 35, 40 minutes because nobody's in a rush. That's not going to fly here in Florida. It's a very demanding place. And if you get a job, you're going to have to excel at it or get fired and replaced immediately. You can even have your business just outpriced by people willing to work for peanuts on the dime. But sadly, too many people that move to Florida end up homeless on the streets, or has been pointed out to me on Facebook groups asking people if they can please get some money so they can move back to wherever the crap they came from, because they're on the streets in Florida. They can't make it. They can't survive. Somebody please just give me money so I can go back to wherever the crap I came from. It's starting to be a thing on the internet in Florida. I can't even begin to tell you how many people I've ran into who moved to Florida and their entire lives are destroyed because of this one decision, because they thought they were going to make a living here like they did wherever they came from. They thought they were going to pay $40 for car insurance like wherever the crap they came from. And they didn't realize all of these other things that we've talked about here, plus more, that their realtor and the sheriff's office that they were subscribed to on the internet forgot to mention to them. Number 9, some parts of rural Florida have overdose rates on par with West Virginia, the worst in the country. They don't really want you to know this. One of the biggest problems facing Florida, some of the highest overdose death rates in the entire country, with particular counties like Hernando, Pasco, and Citrus, and Marion being on par with the worst in the entire country. But they don't tell people about these analytics. In fact, some of the counties that have the biggest problems are the first ones pointing a finger. Look at Oregon, look at California, they got a problem. Well, actually, if you look at the analytics, the problem in Florida is worse than places like Ohio and Eastern Kentucky. Florida's overdose rates are ridiculous, and it's really scary and bad. But don't expect to hear any negative publicity coming out about Florida. And number 10, ridiculous amounts of suicides in the rich areas. Once you get away from the rural areas that suck, the urban areas that suck, finally make it to the suburbs and put your family in a nice gated community in North Naples. Congratulations for you. Well, the troubles are not over then. These areas along the coast that are very high income, very wealthy, for some reason always seem to be where these horrific double suicide, homicide things take place. Take a case some years back in Coilers Reserve, one of the most elite communities in Naples, which is one of the most elite real estate markets in the country. An elderly couple, double suicide takes place, and of course, to this date, they really haven't given us any definitive answers. But this is a very affluent community. We're talking properties into the millions of millions. So these problems are not just affecting the poor areas. Once you move into the rich, nice areas in Florida, you have a completely different deal of problems that you're going to have to deal with. A lot of suicides, and for some reason, random drag racing. Hit and run deaths in Florida are very high compared to other states. They blame it mostly on a lot of undocumented drivers. That sounds pretty on paper, but the reality is, if you look at the arrest reports, it's many times people who have no criminal records. They go out there with a DUI, oops, they catch a manslaughter case, let me just pretend it didn't happen. The amount of pedestrian and bicyclists that are killed both in Sarasota, Naples, and some of these other rich communities every single year is astonishingly high. So don't think that putting your family in one of these suburban places will completely eliminate the suburban plight that we're dealing with in Florida. La perra madre que los parió. Well, there you go. These and the fact that if you bring your poodle within 10 feet of the water, it's going to get strangled by an alligator, are some of the most shocking things that you're going to find out about moving to Florida that your local YouTube channel having realtor isn't going to tell you. The law enforcement agency you're subscribed to on Facebook sure as crap isn't going to tell you. But these are shocking things that are actually taking place in Florida. And if you're moving here, you should be aware of these things, because while Florida is a great place to live with beaches, incredible vibes, incredible authentic cuisines from many Latin American countries, this state really has a lot to offer, but it's lying to people. It's making it seem like it's something that it's really not, and they're actually a scam in themselves and getting people to move to Florida unaware of all of the negative things that are not being talked about. Yeah, I know I'm gonna give you guys the real deal. I love to see these YouTube channels when they make their top 10 cons about living in Florida. Humidity, mosquitoes, and alligators. Get the crap out of here. Tell people what the crap is really happening in Florida. A lot of people moving to Florida are demographically, if you look at some analytics, starting to move back to wherever the crap they came from. But it doesn't matter, because the realtor made money when you moved in, and they made money when you left as well. And the fact that your car insurance doubled when you moved to Florida was an afterthought that you found out while you were living here. Many people who move to Florida start to learn about those afterthoughts way later. So if you don't want to end up on the side of US 19 with a sign saying, "Please take me back to New York," sure you subscribe to my channel, where we give you real information about moving to Florida, not some sugar-coated crap like these dumb...
Okay, Jose, you are done for the day. There's no getting around this. You just need to calm down and drink a tea or something.